of those, because you specifically mentioned states or cities, do I have to be in those cities or states to qualify to start with?
No, actually, what happens is we have regions rather than cities. We have regions, and there's no set boundary to a region. So, even though if you were in New York, let's say you lived in the middle of Massachusetts, you might qualify in the Boston area, but you also might qualify in the New York area because it's sort of halfway in between. Okay. So it depends on where you are picked up. But those programs, we've had such a huge number of folks that have already gone through the initial program, initial stage, that we really can't match them at this point in time. We've had over 750 applicants that have come in through the Nationwide Clearinghouse, and we don't have that many attorneys.
Wow. So let me understand, and for the listeners out there. So I'm an inventor. I came up with an idea. I want to maybe use one of my local resource centers to do my patent search. I bring my information, or maybe nothing at all. I go directly to one of the pro bono opportunities. And if my idea is great, or if it's not that great, do they decide? Is it part of my income that will be verified to make sure that I can afford my own patent or I can't? Maybe if you could just touch a little bit on what sort of criteria, because I'm sure all the listeners are going, hey, pro bono, let's call them up and let's just get right in there, and then you have to wait. And then, during the waiting time of seeing if they do qualify, there might be some opportunity in between that has to make them make a decision if they need a patent quickly or not.
Right. And I totally understand this. And what is originally started with this pro bono program was that the limit for entry into the pro bono program was threefold. One, you had to have some knowledge of the system and have done your homework. In other words, you probably have done a search to find out whether your application is potentially patentable. And you've either filed an application or you can take a certification exam on our website and say, yeah, I know enough about the system, so I'm going to move forward. The second thing that is looked at is income. We're looking at a relatively low income level. We have set the standard at 300% of the poverty level. Now, that is one of the highest income levels that we could possibly get into a pro bono program. Most pro bono programs look at 100 to 150% of the poverty level. So we have gone up to 300%. And it seems to be the max level that most attorneys will consider, because once they're past that level, once somebody's income is past that level, they can usually pay at least a discounted fee or a discounted amount. We're also asking the applicants to pay the patent office fees, so it is not 100% free. We want to make sure that the person that is filing and getting pro bono assistance really has what we call skin in the game. They want to have some invested interest in this patent, so they're moving it forward. It's not just something that is a passing fancy. The other thing that some of the programs are looking at is, does this have some merit? We don't want the patent just to be a very expensive plaque that hangs on somebody's wall. We want to see it be actually something that could be commercialized. The long-term goal is to build businesses and build wealth. That's what we want out of the system.
That's very interesting, John. On top of that, you also have the opportunity for inventors to actually go on your website. Is it a class or is it a workshop or a video on how to actually write a successful application?
Well, that's what we're working on now. One of the things we found, we've been working on a couple of things in the patent office, trying to look at what is one of the biggest downfalls of people who file on their own. We call those pro se filers. And we find that a large percentage of those pro se filers actually fail because they haven't filed a good application, and it actually fails before it even gets to a patent examiner. Or it gets to a patent examiner and they find solid prior art, or they reject the application because it is just so poorly constructed that there's nothing they can do to correct it.
You know what, John? I'm sure to start with, because it's happening to me when I'm speaking to inventors, the most important thing, in my opinion, is to do your research.
Absolutely.
And, you know, they can be all the way into step 2 or 3, or even be working and really putting their resources and time and effort, energy into the patent, whether it's on their own or with somebody else, and they didn't do a simple search. And sometimes people are really further down the stage, and I do a simple search with them on a website, on one of the search engines, and we're like, is that your idea? And they're like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it's out there already. Or if it's something that's kind of obvious, or that's been in public domain for, let's say it's been out there for over 20 years, it's public domain, and it's not something that's patentable, or there might be some twists and turns along the way that maybe they should get some advice prior to filing without having to wait or spin their wheels. I mean, these are type of things and I believe that when you're coming up with an idea and you're filing for a patent, you're in business, and part of the starting a business is doing your research and development. So I think this is very important, and it's unfortunate that you see so many rejections from the start. But really, to get the word out for people, John, for the inventors to really do their research and to do a patent search is really, really, really important, in my opinion.
Well, that's part of the very first video script that I'm writing now.
Great.
And one of the things, there's two things that I really warn people about in that script. One is doing your homework, understanding what your invention really is it patented, has it been used in public domain, and doing that search. That's number one. Number two is, have you figured out what you're going to do with that invention once you get a patent on it? You know, have you done a business plan? Have you planned out how you're going to sell it, how you're going to market it, who you're going to sell it to, what your marketplace is, and so on and so forth, in order to understand what that true usage of your invention is? Because I guarantee you there are a number of individuals that go into the marketplace blind, and they fail, and they lose a tremendous amount of money.
And time.
And time. It's exactly right.
And it's it's very emotional. I mean, people get emotionally attached. It's exciting. It's something new, fresh, innovative. But then again, when you're checking it in with the patent office, you're going to find out if it's something that's your idea or not.
Exactly. And I bring it up real simply. I went to a school in North Carolina that its colors are red and white. And not too far away from that school is another school that has colors that are baby blue and white. And not too far from that one is another school that is navy and white. Now, white will sell any one of those three areas, okay? Because, I mean, it's part of the two colors in each school. But if you sell red in the navy blue town, you're not going to sell it. Or if you sell it in the baby blue town, you're not going to sell it. Or if you bring baby blue into the red town, you're not going to sell it. So it's the same idea with an invention. You've got to think, what am I trying to sell? Do I have a market for it? Where can I sell it? How much can I sell it for? How much does it cost me to make? Am I going to make any profit on this? Or are people going to buy it at the price point that I have to sell it at? There's all kinds of things that people don't think about when they go into figuring out, I'm going to go get a patent on this because I'm going to make $1 million.
Well, just like in my inventor groups, John, we really have a point to track the invention progress that's going on. It's great that you came up with the idea and you brought it to this point, but let's hear some wins. Let's hear what kind of activity you're getting, and we really try to encourage people to commercialize their inventions. That's the whole idea. Unless you do want to hang it up on the wall, that's great. That's part one.
That's exactly right. But the other part is knowing how to, if you're going to file on your own, knowing how to fill out that, prepare an application that is going to pass through the patent office with very little trouble. And I will tell you that what really surprised me when we did this study was that we found that if there was more than one office action, and it's more than one time that the examiner would look at the application, that it had, for a pro se filer, somebody filing on their own, that application had just as much opportunity to be patented as if it was being filed by an attorney. So it tells me that those people that do their homework, prepare their application in the proper manner, have a very good opportunity to get a patent, as long as the claims are done correctly, and it is a patentable piece of patentable invention.
All right. Well, it's going to be interesting to see. Perhaps the Patent Office may want to start tracking the commercialization of patents that are filed and get approved.
I wish we could do that, but I don't know how we can do that. but the big thing here is we're trying to really get some information out to the inventors. And I know that your next guest, Liz, is going to talk about some of the things we're doing to get that word out. Absolutely.
Liz, you're with us, right, Elizabeth?
I sure am, Brian.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. Again, this is Elizabeth Doherty. She is the Director of Inventor Education Outreach and Recognition. Again, welcome to the show, Elizabeth. I know you've been on several times, and there's always great activities that are going on that the inventors need to know about. So please fill us in.
Thank you, Brian, and it's a pleasure to be back on your show again. And I've got to compliment you. Being an inventor and entrepreneur yourself, I know you truly appreciate the needs of the inventors and entrepreneurs and recognize how important education is for this group of individuals at all steps throughout the process and the procedure of applying for intellectual property protection. Just as John was saying, there is a lot of information coming out of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, both from Janet's shop with respect to the America Invents Act, with respect to all of the programs and initiatives that are underway. I got to tell you, there may be sequestration happening in the federal government, but we are as busy as ever. And I'm super excited to tell all of your listeners about a couple of particular events that are coming up here in the not-too-distant future. So I'd want to encourage all of them to get their calendars out and be sure and make note of these and see if the opportunity would present itself for them to participate in one or both of these events.
Great.
The first one I'd like to talk about is our upcoming Independent Inventors Conference. We generally hold these anywhere from 1 to 3 times a year. Sometimes they're at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and sometimes they're in regional locations. This spring, we're fortunate enough to be partnering with Wichita State University in Wichita, Kansas, and we'll be out in the lovely Midwest April 19th and 20th for a Kansas Regional Independent Inventors Conference. Now, people should certainly not shy away thinking that it's only for Kansas inventors. It's certainly open to anyone who would like to register and like to attend. I strongly encourage inventors, innovators, and entrepreneurs alike to come out for the 2-day event. It actually, in fact, starts the Thursday night prior with a pre-conference workshop that is included in the price of the event. And the price for 2 days and a pre-conference workshop is incredibly low. It's a $90 price tag. That includes meals, breakout sessions, a reception, the opportunity to hear some really great presenters, the opportunity to network with fellow attendees, to have one-on-one time with USPTO officials and leaders, and really to gain a lot of insight and a lot of information in 2 days' time.
So are these for inventors that are just starting in the process, or do they have a patent, or they have products in the market already?
You know what, Brian? We've found in the many years that we've been doing these conferences, it's really an event for any and all of those people. There's a takeaway for people who are at all of the different cycles in the innovation cycle, at any place during the innovation cycle. We have some very basic sessions talking about what the basics of intellectual property are. What is a patent? What is a trademark? How should I obtain protection for my intellectual property? Do I in fact have intellectual property? And then there's some more in-depth